Good afternoon. I'm Kate Kirby, APS CEO, and I want to welcome you to the APS Annual Business Meeting. We're speaking to you today from Denver, Colorado, just in advance of the APS April meeting, which is taking place here and promises to be a great success. So we're going to go through the agenda, and we're all going to be speaking at a very high level, and we will entertain questions afterwards, after all the presentations. So just to start out, APS is a really strong organization. Our membership is over 55,000 and stable. Our APS members are engaged and have formed 48 different units. We have a new topical group on data science that was just approved at our council meeting several days ago. And the topical group on soft matter, which formed about 5 years ago, has now maintained a large enough number of people that it's become a division. And so it will have representation on the APS Council. APS has an operating budget of $66 million a year and over $170 million in reserves. And physics itself as a field is growing and evolving. We're at an all-time high in terms of the bachelor's and PhD production. We publish premier journals. You'll hear in a moment from our editor-in-chief and publisher. And our meetings are growing. The APS March meeting has grown by about 10% each year for the past 3 years. And the March meeting in Boston, we hit an all-time high record attendance of over 12,000 attendees. We have nationally recognized programs. I hope that you take some time to explore our website and see what we're doing. But especially in the education and diversity sphere, we've achieved national recognition for our programs. This year, in fact, APS received its largest grant ever for something called iGen, which stands for Inclusive Graduate Education Network. And in this program, we are leading a whole consortium of other societies in the physical sciences to implement a very successful program of APS's, which is called the APS Bridge Program, and therefore extending it to a number of other disciplines within the physical sciences. So this is a really exciting development. Here's a breakdown of the different cohorts in our membership, and the horizontally hatched areas are our international members. And we have international members in essentially every cohort except for our undergraduates. But as you can see, our student cohorts make up a very significant size of our membership, and we are delighted that they are very much a part of our community. And we need them to continue to grow and develop within our community. Just recently, the APS has adopted a set of ethics guidelines. These were developed by a subcommittee of our panel on public affairs, and it incorporates all the APS ethics statements that we've adopted over the years, as well as our code of conduct. And it was sent out to the whole APS membership back in the fall for comments, just as we do with all our APS statements. And the POPA subcommittee looked very carefully at these comments and revised the statement accordingly. You know, our member comments are quite significant in helping to form our statements. The guidelines were put to the council for approval at its meeting several days ago, and it was approved. So you'll be seeing it posted very shortly. Last November, the council also approved a new standing ethics committee. It has 11 members total. We're in the process of just completing the appointments to this committee. It's a very important committee these days. Michael Martyr, who is our past POPA chair, will be the chair of that committee to start it off, and we're planning a face-to-face meeting in the spring. Just to give you a flavor for what the Ethics Committee is charged with doing, first of all, overseeing the dissemination of ethics education topics, especially at our meetings where a number of our members come together. Regularly reviewing APS ethics statements for consistency with current standards and practice, and overseeing the implementation of ethics policies and potential procedures for revocation of honors. Turning now finally to something that we worked on for a considerable amount of time this past year is our strategic plan. We consulted broadly for input, including council members, unit leaders. We had focus groups of our members. We had town halls at both our April and March meetings, and an online portal where members could weigh in on issues that they felt should be noted in our strategic plan. It was led by a steering committee of the board, Nan Finney, who was chair, and appreciate their role in facilitating and coordinating this whole process. It was put before the council and board in November 2018 and adopted, and the plan will really guide our strategy and goals in the near future through 2019 and beyond. And here's sort of the outline or the structure of the plan. It's very high level. It's only 10 pages, very easy to read. And we start off first with our mission, vision, and values. These are particularly important, I think, these days to articulate. Our mission, that is what we do, our vision, what we aspire to, and our values, what we stand for as an organization. It's supported by two main pillars. The one on the left there in green is serving our members, the physics community and society. And the one on the right, ensuring that APS has a meaningful role in scientific research dissemination. And at this point, that means really looking at how we operate in terms of our journals and how those serve our members and the physics community as a whole, and also our meetings. And these then are underpinned by two very important foundational elements that allow us to do what we want to do and aspire to do. And that is securing our financial sustainability and increasing our organizational excellence. At the time we rolled this plan out, it was at the leadership convocation, which brings all our unit leaders together in late January, early February. And at the time we rolled out the plan, we articulated some new initiatives. And here's the list of initiatives. We want to continue to explore the future of scientific research dissemination. Very, very important. We want to develop a new annual APS meeting. We have established an innovation fund, which we launched, and we are embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion at the highest levels of the organization. We're engaging and serving our younger members and our early career scientists, private sector physicists, and international members. And finally, we want to think how we integrate international engagement throughout the APS. So with that, I want to introduce to you our 2019 APS president, David Gross, who's Chancellor's Chair Professor of Physics at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I changed the order a little bit because I realize that David is very interested in talking about some of our initiatives that he has helped to shape in the coming years. So, David.
Well, welcome all of you to the annual business meeting. I must say I recognize a few faces here. So as Kate said, and I'm sure gave you totally convincing data, that the APS is in an extremely strong position. It's doing very well. But as a membership society which is very proud of its role and its activities and its structure, it aims to both maintain the excellence of its operations and expand those. So one of our main missions are meetings, like the April meeting and the March meeting, and we're determined to make those even better. The same goes for our journals, which are excellent but face challenges, and we're determined to meet those. But in addition, in formulating a strategic plan that deals with some of these challenges, maintains excellence and grows it, we've tried to think of some new things where the APS can contribute to our members and to science and to society. And those are the ones that I'm particularly excited about. And I'll just discuss two of them. We're on Kate's list. One is the creation of an annual meeting of the APS, something that has been discussed over the years. But we now have come up with a strategy to expand what is the convocation meeting of the APS, where we indoctrinate new unit leaders and top leadership of the APS every year at the end of January, held in Washington, to adiabatically transform that into an annual meeting with outreach to the media, to the government, and to agencies, to the public, to create a meeting where we can present results of great interest to the whole scientific community across the board. We're trying to do this adiabatically. So next year we'll add one more day to this convocation and trying to start this immediately next January. That's not easy. And then move from there on to we'll see how it works, but if successful, to a true annual meeting of the APS in Washington every year. Second new program is based on the idea that if we have an organization of 55,000 physicists and a organizational staff of 270 outstanding scientists and staffers, that if these people are given opportunities to do new things, to come up with new ideas, they will bite. We announced this in early February. The Innovation Fund, a call for proposals that meet the goals of the strategic goals of the APS, and required that people submit pre-proposals by April 15th. April 15th, I think, plus or minus 2 days. And we received, after just 6 weeks of announcing this, 101 proposals. Conclusion is there's a niche that we have started to fill, and we are now in the process of choosing some of these to proceed as full proposals, and then choosing some of them to proceed with full funding by September. This is a very rapid rollout of a new program, and the response has been much more than we expected. Some of the proposals are really quite exciting, and we'll see, again, how that works. This is an experiment to be continued in future years if successful or expanded or contracted, but we'll see. So far, it seems to be well received, but questions and comments are welcome at the end of this presentation. I'm limited to 5 minutes, so I think I've exceeded my time, and therefore, I will turn the floor over to Kate again. Thank you.
So next up is Jim Hollen, Horst, APS Treasurer. Jim.
Kate. All right, I want to tell you a little bit about how the Society is doing financially. If I can figure out how to advance this thing. Here it is. So we just finished the annual audit, the 2018 audit, and we met with the auditors on March 28th, and I'm very pleased to say that the organization, as it has done many times in the past, received a clean, quote, unmodified opinion. And in the language that the auditors speak, there were no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. So we have the audited financials now, and they've been approved. 2018 was a very good year for our income statement. So the Society is doing very well financially. This is a time where there's great uncertainty. We just came out of our board meeting where we were agonizing about the future of scientific publishing and the business models that might change and so forth. But in spite of all that, we had a great year. We continue to grow our subscription base across the world. Our revenue beat the budget expectations, and we ended the year with a positive gain of $4.2 million. In terms of the investment, we have substantial investments, and although the equity market was weak last year, we still did grow by 2%, so it was not a great year for the investments, but at least it still continued to go up. And so that was 2% during the 12-month period ending at the end of February. And our final market value was $177 million. So we have a very strong cash position, very little debt, and a very great income statement this year. This shows the history over the last decade of our revenue and expense. And you can see that we target to lose a little bit of money, and that is made up for. This revenue line does not include the earnings on our investments. And so we always plan to take a little bit out of the investment portfolio to make up the difference. We were successful in losing a little bit of money as planned up until fiscal year 15 when we broke even. And in fiscal year 16, we had a very disturbing pair of trends. The revenue went down and the expenses went up, which is a very bad sign. Fortunately, that was reversed in the following year and was reversed in an even bigger way in the last year, 2018. So you can see the revenue line is well ahead of the expense line in last year's performance. The final slide I want to show is something new that Margaret Bandera, who's our Chief Financial Officer, and her team and the leaders in the Society are putting together, which we think it's very important to quantify the number of volunteers we have and the number of hours they invest on behalf of the whole society and society in general, donating their time without pay to the APS. So we had 2,900 volunteers, and I'm sure we didn't count everybody. And those people invested almost 66,000 volunteer hours. So it is this kind of spirit of volunteerism that really makes our society the great thing that it is. So now I'd like to turn it over to John Rumble, who is the Speaker of the Council.
Thank you, Jim, and everyone before me. I just want to build on two words that have been, or two phrases that have been said several times already in each of our presentations. That is, APS is a membership society, and this past year APS has put together, or last year put together, a strategic plan. The APS Council is made of representatives of each of its units, and actually is in charge of the scientific mission of the society. And with the new strategic plan in place, the council has very vigorously looked forward not only to what we can do to implement the strategic plan, but how we can take steps to make the implementation as effective as possible. And I just want to touch on 2 or 3 things that the council has done to help turn the strategic plan into action. One, Kate's already mentioned, is we approved some ethic guidelines, which are extremely important, and I think are going to be a model not only for ethical actions within the society, but also a model for other societies to look. Michael Martyr and Popa and Francis Lakely and many others spent an incredible amount of time getting this done, and the council is very appreciative of that effort and approved them just in the last couple of days. Excuse me, I have to read. The second, Kate also briefly mentioned, but I just want to touch on a little bit more, and that is the strategic plan was very emphatic about increasing the involvement of our early career and student members of society. Not only is the society dependent on students to give us growth for the future, but the physics community in not only the United States, but throughout the world is really dependent on having an inflow of new ideas and active people. And during the past council meeting, which ended yesterday, again, some activities were approved to ensure that students would be more active and have the opportunity to be as active as they like to be within the society. The last thing I like to mention, and again, this has been mentioned already a couple times, is the importance of our meetings in meeting that right-hand pillar of being an effective mechanism to encourage scientific dissemination. The council had approved the establishment of what we call a March meeting task force, which is examining this meeting, which continues to grow and had over 12,000 attendees this past year, this past March or just last month, and how we can make sure that it continues to be one of the most effective physics meetings in the world. And we're very excited that we have a very strong group of people who are going to look at that and say, what's next and how are we going to make sure that the March meeting continues to be an important physics event. So the council, as the group of people who represent the membership, is very excited to work with the entire leadership of APS, and we look forward to a great time in doing that. And with that, I'd like to now introduce Matthew Salter, who's the APS publisher. If the clicker's there.
Okay. Thank you very much, John. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, friends, members. It's my great pleasure to be able to give you some update and look about our journal portfolio and look ahead to a few things in 2019. The journal portfolio is, there we go, the physical review journals, and in that I'm also including reviews of modern physics, are really the crown jewels for our science dissemination activities. We've been publishing them now for 126 years, since 1893. And as of this year, we have 14 peer-reviewed titles that cover the whole arc of physics. At my this meeting last year, we only had 13, and this year we're very, very proud to be introducing a new journal to our portfolio, which is, which is Physical Review Research, which is new for 2019. Our journals, we believe, represent outstanding must-read content across the whole arc of physics with unrivaled reputation, based on high-quality peer review and the fact that they are a community-driven set of journals. We're growing and diversifying this journal portfolio, and as you can see, we cover an entire the entire range of physics. You'll probably see some of your favorite journals up there, and in more recent years, we've been introducing specialty journals such as Physical Review Applied, Fluids, and Materials. We are experiencing a steady growth throughout the year in 2018, and we published just under 20,000 articles across that period. So the journals are healthy, growing, and diversifying. Some of this growth has been led by specialist journals. Physical Review Materials, for example, launched in 2017, had its first full year last year and published almost 700 high-quality articles. Physical Review Fluids exceeded 500 articles for the first time since its launch in 2016. Physical Review X, which is our extremely selective, fully open access journal, had a new high of 281 articles. It is the most selective journal in terms of an accept rate, and it's really been growing in great stature and also in coverage. Physical Review Applied is our fastest growing journal, and that had another very, very strong year in 2018, and the early signs in 2019 is that this will continue. Kate referred in detail in her address to the APS 2019 strategic plan, and a key part of that, of course, is ensuring a meaningful role in scientific research dissemination. This is just an excerpt from that, and in it we see our plan for journals growing and diversifying and evolving, particularly in open access. And with that in mind, based on that plan, rooted in that plan and following that plan, this year we launched Physical Review Research, a fully open access journal that welcomes papers and submissions from across the entire arc of physics, pitched at the level of the main group Physical Review journals, that's Physical Review A through E, on that level. It's based in the experience that readers and authors have learned to trust and value, the peer review standards and quality that we have established across our journal portfolio. We commend it to the community. We launched it at the end of February. The first page went up, and we announced that journal to the world at the end of February. We debuted it at the March meeting, where it received very positive response from researchers. We, of course, will be talking about that at APS April meeting this year in the next few days as well. The fact it's broad and interdisciplinary and covers not just what we cover in the Physical Review A through E and our specialist journals, but also interdisciplinary fields and fields which maybe haven't been so well represented in our journals going forward, in the past. Going forward, this will be a home, we hope and believe, for those. It is a fully open access journal, as I said, with papers published, will be published under a CC BY license. We plan to open for submissions in early May, and we're looking forward to publishing papers later this year. You can follow the journal on Twitter, Physical Review Research, and of course there is a page explaining the scope and other information around Physical Review Research, which is on the APS Journals page. So with that in mind, I'd like to now call upon Michael Tunnison, who is our Editor-in-Chief, to talk to you a little bit more about the editorial side of our journals. Michael.
Thank you, Matthew. I would like to take the opportunity to review a few highlights of the last year as far as journals are concerned. Last year, the Physical Review celebrated its 125th anniversary, and as part of this, every month APS News published an article about each of the journals, and as Matthew said, we had 14 journals. That doesn't quite fit into the 12 months, so I'm happy to report that in this month's issue, in the April issue of the APS News, the last but not least journal has been highlighted, and that is Physical Review C. A couple of other news. Last year, we had the first Irving Oppenheim Award, which is awarded to the best paper by early career scientists published in Physical Review E. And the first awardees were Todd Gingrich from Northwestern and Jordan Horowitz from Michigan, and they were presented their award at the March meeting. I have to report that Eric Weinberg announced his retirement as lead editor of Physical D after serving for 23 years, and we currently started the process of searching for a replacement. And also in Physical D, we were happy that we were awarded the opportunity to publish the 60th anniversary edition of Reviews of Particle Physics that was published last August. We have one new lead editor, Gordon Drake from Windsor University, retired after 13 years as the lead editor of Physical A. And starting January, we are happy to announce that Jan Michael Horst from the Max Planck Institute for Physics of Complex Systems in Dresden has taken over as the lead editor. A couple of highlights of the editorial activities at the March meeting. In addition to the traditional Meet the Editors reception and tutorial, We had a tutorial on scholarly metrics and research assessment, and also we started something new that our editors made themselves available to chair sessions, which was, I think, very well received. One idea that came from the journals was then adopted by the whole APS, by several departments, is the Wikipedia editathon, which was very successful, and I'm happy to report that Kate now has a Wikipedia page. This year, as you probably noticed, the RMP 90th anniversary session, it's the 90th anniversary of RMP. There was a plenary session that was very well attended at the March meeting, and I would like to direct your attention to the April meeting session. The third plenary session on Tuesday morning will be devoted to the 90th anniversary of RMP, and I think we have 3 excellent speakers, and I strongly encourage you to attend the session. Another thing that we're now in our 3rd year is of organizing Physics Next workshop to cover new emerging areas, and the next workshop is in a couple of weeks on X-ray laser science, and then in the summer fall we are devoting the workshop to something slightly different, which is very important for the future, and that is the future of research dissemination. Looking towards the future, Matthew has pointed it out already, the physical review journals continue to do very well. The editors strive to publish high-quality articles based on a highly regarded peer review system. And as such, in the strategic plan, I think it's important to point out that the strategic plan doesn't mean we do everything new. We do things very well, and we have to build on that strength. So in that sense, being a trusted and authoritative source of high-quality peer-reviewed research and reporting. So that means we have to make sure that our current and existing journals continue to be a valuable resource for our members. And then to thrive in an evolving open access, open science environment, we will develop our publishing portfolio and service to better address author and reader needs. That's where PhysRev research comes in that Matthew has already mentioned. And with that, I hand it over to Francis Lakely, the Chief Governmental Affairs Officer.
So if you've been following the work of the APS Office of Government Affairs, either through the monthly email you get from APS or the articles that have been appearing in APS News, then you've seen the grassroots techniques that we can now deploy. So you've seen that we can work with APS members to place op-eds in local newspapers all across the country. You've seen that we can send out alerts to targeted districts and states and mobilize hundreds of APS members at a time. And it's good that we can do this because we need that grassroots technique now more than ever. And in fact, by working with APS members, working together, locked together, we had some really important wins in 2018. And I want to mention a few of them. Here's the issues that we worked on. I'm just going to highlight a few of them right now, starting with the federal research budget. So working with a coalition of STEM organizations, we got Congress, again, to completely reject President Trump's proposed budget cuts to science. But that required pulling off 3 big pushes. So we had to first get Congress to increase the spending caps, and then we had to get Congress to put the money from that increased cap actually into science, and then we actually had to get them to start passing appropriations bills. Thousands of APS members contributed to the campaign that got those things to happen. And they did that by writing op-eds, by making visits in Washington, D.C., by making visits in-state, phone calls, letters. So working together, we got that win on the budget. A couple other successes in 2018. The Prosper petition. So we defeated legislation that would have eliminated a key loan provision for students who are pursuing degrees in physics. And to do that, we worked with the Forum on Graduate Student Affairs and the Society of Physics Students. And the first step in that was to work with them to develop a petition. That petition got over 1,000 signatures. And then we targeted particular members of Congress who are very influential in that legislation. Senator Alexander in Tennessee, Senator Murray in the state of Washington. And working with students, we placed op-eds in those 2 states. And the students told very powerful personal stories about how if the loans didn't exist, they would have been unable to pursue their degrees in physics. And then the last step was actually to have those students make visits in-state to Senator Murray's office, to Senator Alexander's office, deliver the petition and tell their stories. And by working together, we killed that legislative proposal. Quantum Initiative. So working with colleagues at the Optical Society of America, SPIE, the National Photonics Initiative, we got legislation that was actually signed into law that created a National Quantum Initiative. But there was one particular step in that was uniquely our contribution, and it was done by physicists in Colorado and physicists in New Mexico who got a critical amendment added to that legislation that provided budget protection. And by that I mean if that amendment hadn't passed, if they hadn't crafted that amendment with us, if they hadn't pushed for that amendment in Colorado and in New Mexico and get those senators to adopt it, then increases to the quantum portfolio could have come at the expense of other science programs. So very important work that our physicist colleagues did in Colorado and in New Mexico. And then there was one other new initiative for us last year, and that's the F1 visa. This actually was brought to us by an APS member. He's on the executive board of DCMP. He alerted me that there was a remarkable drop, an alarming drop in the number of international applications to their PhD program. So what we did at the Office of Government Affairs is do a survey, and we surveyed every physics department in the country that was graduating 10 or more PhDs per year, and it turns out the results were quite alarming. And once all the data came in, while there are some institutions that are insulated from this, the average drop in international applications was 12%, some institutions suffering as much as 30 or 40%. So the next step was for me to meet with STEM colleagues. It turns out that they were seeing drops too. It's not just unique to physics, it was in chemistry, it was in electrical engineering, it was in mechanical engineering. And then together we developed a strategy, and that was to make the F1 visa, which is the visa that brings international students to our country, make it dual intent. And right now it's single intent, which means if an international student comes here, they can only come here with one intent, that's to study, and then they go back to their country. We wanted to make it dual intent, which means they come here with the intent to study, but also with the intent, if they choose to apply for citizenship. So I'm happy to say that that's actually bipartisan. And many of our members have gone to congressional offices to talk about this, and what we have found that both Democrats and Republicans consider this a no-brainer. Why would the U.S. want to train these students only to have them go back to their country and compete with us? So here's what priorities now look like in 2019. I'll go over this very quickly. We'll continue to work on the federal research budget. We'll continue to push for making the F1 visa dual intent, only now it's part of a larger initiative, a scientific mobility initiative, where we'll push for F1 dual intent plus path for citizenship, plus we'll address growing concerns about espionage and IP theft. And there's another item that we've added to 2019. Again, this was something brought to us by our members. They're helping us keep this front and center, and that is maintaining ready accessibility of liquid helium. We're working with partners at the American Chemical Society, Materials Research Society. We're working with Congress and the administration to try to address the problem. And then finally, one other issue that we're addressing is sexual harassment in the sciences. Let me first say that Kate Kirby has shown extraordinary leadership on diversity, equity, inclusion issues. And the role for the Office of Government Affairs is to try to advance legislation that addresses sexual harassment in STEM. That legislation has three parts. It documents problems, it begins to establish responses, and then it monitors progress. This is something that our congressional visitors advocated for in January, and I'm happy to say that the legislation has been introduced, and the work from our congressional visitors led directly to more than a dozen sponsors in the legislation and to introduction of the legislation in the Senate. So that gives you a quick snapshot of 2018 successes and the things we're working on in 2019, and now I'll turn it back over to Kate to take questions.
Thank you to all the speakers today. I just want to close by actually thanking the outstanding APS staff. as well as our many, many engaged members. As Jim Hollen Horst showed you that slide, so many of our members put in such incredible effort on making our programs effective. And really, the success of APS depends on their involvement, and we listen. So let me open an opportunity for people here in Denver to ask questions who are in the audience. Please come up to the microphone and ask your questions. And Jeanette, do we have people asking questions online?
We do. There's one individual who would like to know what the future of young physicists in Africa looks like.
Okay, that's an interesting question. We certainly have had an emphasis on international engagement over the past year and a half. Amy Flatten, who is our Director of International Affairs, has been working with an excellent group of our members to look at how we engage more effectively and increasingly internationally. I know that her committee on international scientific affairs has actually had an Africa project working, partnering actually with a number of other scientific societies such as IOP in the UK, I think the European Physical Society, focusing on what Africa would like from us, you know, what would be helpful in terms of furthering African physics. And so there's a lot going on. Actually, the APS is currently publishing quarterly an African newsletter. That was identified by this subgroup as being one of the things they really would like to reach across Africa, letting all the different countries in Africa know what's going on in African physics. So thank you for the question.
There's another question. What is APS's response to Plan S open access?
Matthew, would you like to come up and or just go to the mic there, maybe, and say?
Please. Thank you very much, Kate, and thank you for the question. So Plan S, of course, as everybody knows, I think it was an initiative launched from Europe in September last year. It's something which has gathered a great deal of attention and is certainly an important initiative in advancing open access. As we all know, APS has always had a strong commitment to open access in a sustainable manner, as long as it sustains high-quality peer review. And 3 of our journals are open access. I've just described Physical Review Research. It's our 4th fully open access journal. So we have a strong commitment to open access in our portfolio. Some of our journals are also members, 3 of our journals are also involved in the Scope 3 project for publishing high energy physics. With regard to Plan S itself, I like to think of that as part of an overall part of the conversation around open access. And from the APS's perspective, I'm more interested in developing Plan APS because I think we need to look at more and inventive ways of embracing more aspects of open access to grow in terms, for example, of in physical review research, our open access offering. And so since I've been publisher, I've been looking for more ways to expand and create more options within our journal portfolio for people to publish open access. And so for me, rather than focusing on one specific initiative, an important initiative though it is, I see our role as looking to see how we can incorporate more open access into our journals going forward.
Thank you, Matthew. And please, if there are any questions here in the room, please stand up. Good. And come forward.
I have 2 questions, actually. Should I ask both of them or just one at a time?
Sure.
The first one has to do with the increase in revenue from publications. Is that entirely due to the new journals that were introduced, or is it just a general subscription increase? And my second question has to do with the F1 visa situation. Does the legislation as written apply to existing students who are in the U.S. with F1 visa or only to new students? So those two.
Matthew, very quickly, you respond to that?
Yes, so
Question
with
about
regard to
publishing.
the increase in revenue, all journal publishers make proportionate increases in their journal prices. We have increasing costs year on year. I think the important thing to note is if you look at the actual, the absolute number of dollars may increase, but if you rebase this, for example, historical dollars, we have no larger take overall. If you compare, for example, to 2007, we are at about the same level of equivalent dollars. So it's partly due to inflation. And there are, of course, increases, small increases due to the increased level of publication we have.
Thank you. Slake.
So you've alerted me to an important issue, and I'm going to have to check into it. But I think currently drafted, it applies to people who will come here in the future.
Okay. Jeanette.
We have another online question. What are the barriers to having other physics societies merge with APS?
Well, we're a very welcoming society, and a merger is something that has to be sought by both. But that's certainly something one could consider in the future.
And there's an additional question regarding the announcement of the APS being part of the Society's Consortium on Sexual Harassment in STEM to advance professional and ethical conduct, climate, and culture across the respective fields. The person saw this and wants more information.
Yes, so this initiative was started last fall by the AAAS and AGU in response to the National Academy's report on sexual harassment in STEM with a double M. That's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine. And it is a serious issue. And so it's very important that APS participate in this consortium so that we're sharing an understanding of how to model best practices, how to deal, I think, with these very troubling situations. And APS is in a leadership role on the executive committee of this consortium. We were asked to serve in that role. Monica Plish, who is our Director of Education and Diversity, is our representative on that consortium, and she's playing a very significant role there. So I look forward to the work that this group is doing, informing our ethics committee as we struggle to understand how we model different policies and procedures in terms of dealing with sexual harassment issues as they come before our ethics committee.
There's no further questions from online.
Okay. Any questions here in the room? Well, thank you all for being here, and we look forward to a very successful meeting here in Denver. Thank you.